Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5:30, and I will call this regular meeting of the Burnsville City Council to order. The clerk would note that, for the record, that all council members are present, and it is our tradition to begin our meetings with a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, to our citizens who are watching us, we are still being very creative in how we slowly come back in under this environment of the global pandemic, COVID-19. So tonight's meeting is being conducted in person. All of our city council members and our staff are here inside City Hall in the council chambers, and we are practicing social distancing. If you can see, we are all physically separated from one another. And so members of the public may attend in person if they like. Members of the public may also watch this meeting online at burnsvillemn.gov/meetings or Comcast Channel 16 or 859. If you would like to participate during the meeting remotely, you may call 651-372-8299 or join the meeting online at zoom.us/join, and more information is available on our meeting web page and in the council agenda packets. So we now will move on to the next item on our agenda, and that is announcements about our upcoming meetings. So regular council meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, July 7th at 5:30 p.m. and Tuesday, July 21st at 5:30 p.m. We have a work session that's scheduled for Tuesday, July 14th at 5:30 p.m. In July, we will have in-person public meetings at City Hall with an option to participate online. Please check the meeting agenda or call City Hall if you have any questions about how to participate in an upcoming meeting. And now we will move on to citizens' comments. This is the opportunity for anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on an item that is not in a printed agenda and not in application form that will be coming before us at a future date. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council? I do not see any members of the public present, and I don't have anything that tells me that there's anyone in queue who wishes to address the council. Okay. We now move on to additions to the final agenda, and this is for emergency items only. Ms. Mascali, are there any emergency items to be added to the agenda?
There are not, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Members of the council, do you have any emergency items? Okay, there is none. We move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a group of items that's considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. However, an item on a consent agenda can be removed for a separate discussion and vote. Ms. Mascali, does staff want an item to be removed from the consent agenda?
We do not, Madam Mayor.
Okay, members of the council? Okay, may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda, please?
Move to approve.
Councilmember Gustafson makes the motion.
Second.
Councilmember Workman seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. We are now on the regular agenda, and the first item on the regular agenda is the audit report from our independent auditor. Our independent auditor is Jim Eichten and Jackie Hugo. Okay. And I always do this, Mr. Eichten, because I want to make sure I continue to pronounce all of your partners' names. So it's the firm of Malloy Montague, Karnowski, and Radosevich. Did they get it? I do it once a year. MMK. All right, and so, thank you. And so, our auditor is here to present the audit to the council and to the people of Burnsville. Mr. Eichten.
Mayor, thank you for the introduction. As mentioned, my name is Jim Eichten. I'm here this evening to provide a audit report for the year ended December 31st, 2019. Thanks for having me. Jackie's here as well. Jackie's one of our partners and has worked on the audit very diligently this year in partnership with me, as well as partnership with the staff in terms of getting the audit report completed. I'm going to start my comments this evening really just frameworking the purpose for me being here, but mostly just giving the sense to the council that the results are very good this evening. Probably the highlight of the audit is that we're here in mid-June, which is very timely for this audit. Is the typical time that we do this audit presentation, but it was performed in an environment that was not typical. We did complete this particular audit in the middle of a pandemic. It started probably in January, February timeframe, and most of the hard work was done remotely through all of our staff work and your staff in terms of putting this together. To get here today at a normal time and present this audit is a credit to certainly the City of Burnsville staff. And I just wanted to framework that before I get started with my actual presentation. So you'll see I did provide a PowerPoint tonight, and really the PowerPoint starts with the role of the auditor and the purpose for me being here. It is a requirement in state law that the city have an annual financial statement prepared. That financial statement is required to be submitted to the Office of the State Auditor of the state of Minnesota, and it is required to be audited by an independent certified public accountant, which is our role with the city. We're provided in that process with the goal of providing opinions on that financial statements. The city does take it above and beyond the standard financial statement and do prepare what's called a comprehensive annual financial report. That comprehensive annual financial report is submitted to the GFOA for a certificate of achievement. The city's received that certificate for, I forget the number, it's probably higher than 1 and
years.
lower than 40. What was it?
I think it's, majority is 20 years that we received consecutive awards
Right.
from GFOA.
Yes. So it's been a long time, and the city should be commended for that. As part of the audit process, we do also then test the city's internal controls and your compliance with the various laws and regulations that relate to financial reporting. We also then test your compliance with Minnesota-specific laws and regulations. We test laws that are provided by the Office of the State Auditor. We don't test every law, only those that are provided on that list to us. And then lastly, we're required to complete what's called the single audit of federal awards if you were to receive more than $750,000 of federal awards. That was not required in fiscal 2019. It has been required in the past, and given the nature of some of the future funding that you're going to be receiving, I would anticipate you'll have a single audit again here in the near future. My PowerPoint then starts to go over what's called the management report. And in our management report, the document is a document that we write to formalize the audit process and provide information to the council such that you could review the management report and understand how the audit went by reading that document. So as I mentioned, the audit results are very good this year. You did receive unmodified opinion on the financial statements. It is what I would describe as a clean opinion. It was the opinion you were looking for going into the audit process. And we did not have any findings to report in either the internal control documents that you have, as well as the Minnesota Legal Compliance Audit. There were not any findings to report there as well. So certainly the results you were looking for, as well as a clean audit opinion, is certainly a very positive results this year. So in my management report, we do also provide some information on the scope of the audit, really the timing of the audit. I did reference that. It also provides some information on required communications You will note some discussion within that document of the impact of COVID-19 on the audit report. There is some required elements of disclosure that were provided, including really just allowing the reader to be aware that, yes, some of the conditions economically have changed since this audit report was written. This is a document that is dated December 31st. Things economically have changed dramatically since that time, and thus the report reflects that. There is an opportunity within the financial report to provide a discussion on the impact to actual fiscal 2020. I know that's actually an agenda item this evening that you'll be talking about. But just so that the document does provide information to that, in that area as well. Then the second part of the audit, of any audit really, is the financial results. And in this management report, we do go through those financial results, really starting with some trend lines on market values. Market values tend to drive property tax revenues. You can see the property values of the city have been increasing. In 2019, taxes payable in 19 will increase about 6%, 6.2%. The presentation you see on the PowerPoint there is very similar to what other Twin City metropolitan area cities are experiencing in terms of market value. Certainly declines went down after 2008 and certainly have increased since that time. We do provide information in our document on the property tax rates and the trends on property tax rates. What's you're seeing there is the city's average tax rate is for 2019 was almost exactly, or is exactly, the same as the previous year. Overall, the overall city tax rate did decline, mostly because the school district had a lower than average tax rate. What that means in terms of financial results really is reflected in this graph. You'll see in this graph we provide information on the city's revenues on a per capita basis. Certainly with the positive trends in market value and really consistent tax rates, you're seeing that property tax revenues are increasing, as well as an increase in combination with the increase in the tax levy. The city's property tax revenues per capita did increase slightly. What's notable there is really in total, the property tax revenues the total revenues per capita are actually very consistent with other cities within the state. You can see in 2018, $1,008 per resident was generated, where Burnsville was at $1,004. So very consistent in terms of revenues per capita. You also see that when you look at my presentation in the expenditure area. Expenditures per capita in total were $953 per resident, when in total it's about $1,081. So actually you're lower than the average city. Some of the categories there are provided, but current costs are actually lower than comparable. One area that the city does typically trend higher is in the area of public safety. The city has a full-time fire department, which tends to drive higher than average costs in that particular category. We always look in terms of auditors as at the debt service line. The debt service line you'll see is $80 per resident, when on average a city your size has about $138 per resident. What that says to an auditor is good fiscal management,
Yeah.
good fiscal management in terms of debt loads.
We always have to watch that debt service when we're looking at the rating agencies.
It's very important to them.
Yeah.
That number stands out. We then get into individual fund data. Here we're just going to give some highlights on some of the highlights of individual funds. You can see the general fund financial position did improve in 2019. The fund balance ended the year roughly 61% of operations of expenditures. The city does have a fund balance policy that states to maintain a goal of a minimum of 35% of fund balance, and obviously you're above that goal. There's really two reasons that you have such a fund balance goal, one of which is you need it for adequate cash flow. The second one really is to help with the impact of uncertainties.
Like COVID-19?
And you took the words right out of my mouth. Having a fund balance that's consistent, and you can see on this graph, and this graph could probably go back 10 years prior to this, the stability of the general fund really allows for the city to work through some of the uncertainties you're working through right now. And certainly this particular presentation does reflect very solid financial position in the general fund of the city. A couple other graphs in the general fund we do provide. Revenues, here we're showing revenues on a per source basis. The revenues and expenditures in the general fund do continue to be close to what the city does budget. As auditors, we look at those particular variables to verify your expectations in terms of budget or matching final results. In the revenue area, certainly that did occur. The city did experience revenues in excess of budget, mostly in the area of building activity. Building activity was a positive for the city in 2019. On the expenditure side, the expenditures of the city did come in less than budget. You would hope for that as a city, mostly in the area of public safety and really general government, which was spread across a variety of categories. The graph you see in front of you does reflect on some of the trends over the last 5 years in the area of expenditures within your general fund. You can see this particular graph does reflect the city's commitment towards public safety. The category that's been growing mostly over the 5 years is in the area of public safety. Public safety does include fire, so it is not just police. I do want to comment that I think I've done this presentation now several times this year, and that particular trend line is experienced within most of our metropolitan cities. I don't reflect on that as a political statement at all. It's mostly just a factual statement. That is a data point that you'll see within our state is the increasing costs or the costs spending in the public safety area. Well, the city does have some very substantial enterprise funds. Enterprise funds are typical business activities. The water sewer fund, which is about a $17 million operation, does have very consistent results. You can see the purple line there shows operating income, which excludes depreciation, which is the most important line on that particular graph. You can see a slight downturn in 2019, mostly related to repairs and maintenance expense. Not really concerning on my end, but something to be aware of. Some smaller enterprise funds, which includes the stormwater fund, really had very consistent results, very positive results, which is reflected on the purple line. The Ames Center Fund is a fund that the city does continue to monitor very closely. You can see in that particular presentation, I focus on the trend line of the purple line, and specifically that it's increasing. You can see that even in the numbers, you can detail into the numbers, and you can see the overall financial results of that particular fund have improved in every year listed, each and every year for the last 5 years, which is very much a positive sign for the Ames Center. I'm going to skip over the ICE Center and really get to the last item I really want to cover in my management report. As I mentioned, we do provide information on legislative information. The city also is provided in the document with some accounting and auditing updates. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board continues to issue more and more standards, and this year was no different. There was a number of standards that were implemented. Fortunately, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board did us a favor recently by deferring all of the accounting standards due to COVID-19. They took basically every standard that they issued in the last, or those that hadn't been implemented, and allowed for a year deferral. So that's certainly going to help accountants and staff members here who are dealing with a lot going on with this and allowing for some deferral of some of the new standards that they have. So in summary, I did issue a clean opinion on the financial statements. I did not have any findings to report. I mentioned the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting. I did reflect on the city's solid financial condition. And lastly, I had two other comments to make. One of the comments that we talked about in any really audit when we lead into it is the sense of the importance of the ongoing assessment of results and the ongoing assessment of operations. And when we went into this audit, one of the things that you will note right away is there's a different person sitting over in this chair. And that can mean a lot to an auditor, and it can mean a lot of, typically, I'll just reflect, it can mean a lot of challenges for auditors. Immediately, the red flag typically goes up when we dive into audits where there's new staff and new new finance individuals. We didn't run into any challenges this year with the audit at all. It felt like it was any typical audit year for us, other than a pandemic took place. But typically, things that we would look for and challenge ourselves with this audit, given changeover and turnover in personnel, did not occur whatsoever. And that's a credit to everybody here, including the council, but mostly to her and her staff. So with that, very positive results and very positive trends at the city this year. So I'll turn it over to you for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Eichten? Yeah. Mr. Eichten, our sincere appreciation for the work that you and Ms. Hagel have done for us, and I'm happy to hear that it was seamless. And of course, Ms. Rhodey is not new to either one of you.
Nope.
She's helped on all of the past audits as well. It's good to know that you can report to our citizens that there is a clean opinion and that you've had no findings, and that's always good, and that we are in a strong financial position, and we hold our AAA bond rating. And when I read through everything and saw that in terms of our market value and everything that we have in Burnsville, we can't do much about our per capita income, but there are some things that we can do. But having a 5-year budget plan and a 5-year capital improvement plan, these are all very important items to a rating agency and to all of you who look at us and say, do they have good policies in place and good management structures in place? And we do. And it's good for our citizens to hear that from someone objective, someone outside of government that we hire to do this work. So thank you so much for all of that and for reporting to our citizens our strong financial position. So with that, members of the council, I need a motion to adopt the audit.
Motion to adopt the audit.
Councilmember Schultz makes the motion.
Second?
Second by Councilmember Workman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Have a good evening.
I will.
Stay healthy, safe, and well.
Try.
Thank you. The next item is our city manager's update to us on the COVID-19 response update. Ms. Mescali.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm going to provide a brief update on where we're at on the legislative side of the world, and then we're going to turn it over to Ms. Rhodey for a financial update, and then Mr. Lindberg for our recovery update. We are in special session this week, and the Senate and the House are both hearing bills related to the distribution of the CARES Act. So earlier today, the Senate adopted a bill that would allocate approximately $4.7 million of CARES funding to the city of Burnsville. The House has yet to act on their proposal, but we are tracking those very closely. Once we get the final distribution, we will continue to work on the definition and the eligible expenses. Again, these funds cannot be used for lost revenues, but we will be watching and allocating as many dollars as we can to those eligible funds. So with that, we're in a bit of a waiting game for this, for the legislature this week. We understand they intend to adjourn by Friday, so we will continue to keep the council updated on what we learn on the financial side of that.
And once the House votes, they want to quickly distribute the money.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed, yes.
Yeah, it's eligible expenses.
Yeah.
We're
Tiny
diving.
portion of it.
Yeah, we're diving into a lot of that, trying to understand what's eligible.
And so with that, I would like to turn over to Ms. Rhodey to talk a little bit more about the financial position related to COVID-19.
Yeah, hi.
Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. I just have a quick update on a couple of financial items. You know, as we kind of go along, we keep monitoring everything and update as necessary. Just a quick update on property taxes. We have received, the city did receive at the end of May, the first settlement of current property taxes, about 17 million. So that was the first advance. And the county has told us in their reports that they've collected about 97% of those current collections. So I think that's good news. We still expect to receive, as the date, you know, the deadline is July 15th for current payment of the first half. So we still do expect to receive payments before then, and they will settle the entire amount by the end of July. We'll have gotten all of our first half collections. They're doing it in 3 or 4 different settlements throughout the next month or so. So I think that's, you know, good news for now, and we'll keep monitoring, you know, that percentage of collections. I think the second half, you know, we'll have to see too where that goes once we get to December and have those collections, but we'll keep reporting on that. As far as permit revenues through the end of May, so far, May was a good month, and so we are on track now to reach budget. We haven't seen a slowdown. Yet, so I think that's good news, and we keep monitoring that each month. So, yeah, those are kind of the highlights of what I have, and as we talked about just a minute ago, we're still waiting on the CARES funding, so we'll see what that brings.
Any questions for Ms. Rhodey? Ms. Muscoli, thank you so much. Ms. Rhodey, thank you very much for the update. And seems like, you know, even with COVID-19, we haven't missed a beat. So thank you to our wonderful staff. Please extend our appreciation to everyone, Ms. Muscoli, for the great work. Even through a pandemic and the economic recession that we're in, the staff has done a wonderful job. And now we're in also with the racial injustice crisis. So we'll continue to move through all of that.
Madam Mayor, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like Mr. Lindberg to provide a brief update about our recovery as we move into reopening city facilities.
Excellent. Mr. Lindberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'll keep it brief. As you have heard from us in the past, we are implementing our Step 2 of a 3-step plan. Step 2 has been defined by reentry, really learning from our experience through the recovery efforts that we've undergone to this point in time and our response to COVID-19, as well as opening city facilities back up based on community need. So we have communicated to staff that we plan to fully implement Step 2 by July 1st. It coincides with the temporary closures expiring of City Hall, as an example, on June 30th. So we're actively preparing for that. Step 2 is really defined by us looking at what it is that the organization and, more importantly, the community needs, and then looking to open facilities, return some city staff back to work from remote work assignments. At the same time, we're interacting with staff, and we'll be seeking their input as we review Step 2 and plan for Step 3. Where Step 2 has been focused on reentry, we really defined Step 3 about reimagining how we provide service. We've learned a lot, and we intend to use what we've learned to continue to provide the best possible experience to the community. So as we do that, we're interacting with staff, what went well, what didn't in our Step 2 implementation, and then that will poise us or put us in a good position to do some departmental planning around Step 3 implementation. I expect that will be happening through July, and we'll continue to provide you updates on how that goes. We're also looking at our remote work policy and working very closely with a group of staff who have committed to providing us with some feedback, as well as our recovery team, to start talking from a leadership perspective and an employee perspective about how we continue to reimagine how remote work might look as we continue to navigate through our recovery. I'll close with this, our organizational values and the expectations and priorities that you set for us in early April really have been a strong guiding force for us in this work, and I think it's led to really good outcomes and some great feedback internally, and I hope that translates into great experiences for our community, our residents, our business owners, and everyone who interacts here in Burnsville.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lindberg? Okay, anything else, Ms. Muscovy?
No, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and that is the end of our regular agenda, and a motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Councilmember Schultz makes a motion, second by Councilmember Keeley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Good night, and thank you for being with us.